Good evening. I'm Soraya Mia. You're watching AWANI Tonight. The Cabinet has given the green light for the Sultan Abdul Aziz Shah Airport in Subang to be redeveloped into a regional aerospace hub, says Transport Minister Anthony Loke. Dubbed the Subang Airport Rejuvenation Plan, it aims to transform the airport with a maximum capacity of 8 million annual passengers.
A very major policy decision is to allow narrow-body jet to operate from Subang Airport. So, if without this major decision, without this policy decision, the entire regeneration plan cannot work, because the government has disallowed jet to operate from here since 2002 because of our policy to focus on KLIA. Of course, when KLIA was drawn up, there was a study made that we have to ensure that KLIA reaches more than 60 million passengers per annum before Subang Airport can be considered for as a secondary airport or as a city airport. And in 2019, pre-COVID, we have passed that mark of more than 60 million passengers from KLIA per annum. So right now, I think the important focus is that we want to regenerate Subang Airport as a city airport, as a secondary airport, complementing KLIA. So this will be more as a business jet hub, premium jet for business passengers, and of course for penerbangan berjadual.
Loke said the next step was for Malaysia Airport Holdings Berhad (MAHB) to conclude its detailed redevelopment plan, including the cost of the project, for it to be presented to the Cabinet before the end of the first quarter of 2023.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has reiterated there is no nepotism involved in the appointment of Nurul Izzah Anwar as his senior advisor on economics and finance. He says there is no possibility for Nurul Izzah to use her position to amass wealth or influence decisions on tenders or projects.
I take, of course, a strong position against those who have criticized, particularly those who have awarded billions or hundreds of millions of contracts to their son or son-in-law or cronies when they were in power. And now they want to talk about good governance. I do respect the views of concerned citizens who seem to express their concern in the event that that position is used to or abused to benefit family members. And that, I can assure you, in no uncertain terms, will not happen under my administration.
A powerful earthquake that struck southeast Turkiye near the Syrian border has killed over 1,500 people and injured thousands more. The 7.8 magnitude quake, which hit the city of Gaziantep early in the morning, was also felt in Cyprus, Lebanon, and Israel. Another 7.5 magnitude earthquake has since hit the same region, with the epicenter this time near the city of Kahramanmaraş. The death toll in Turkey alone currently stands at 1,014 people, while state media in Syria reported at least 371 dead and another 221 killed in rubble-held areas. Many buildings have collapsed. Rescue teams have been deployed to search for survivors under piles of rubble. It marks Turkey's largest disaster since 1939, with over 2,800 buildings collapsed as a result. Wisma Putra says no Malaysians were reported to be affected by the quake so far. Meanwhile, Malaysia will be sending a special search and rescue team known as SMART to Turkiye to assist with the rescue efforts after the earthquake. A total of 75 SMART members are scheduled to fly to Turkiye tonight and will bring along equipment needed in the operations.
Ya, ada permohonan dari Turki setelah ditimpa malapetaka gempa bumi yang agak dahsyat, dan saya telah mengarahkan menteri segera untuk menyiapkan pasukan dan dikirim dalam tempoh segera.
The SMART team received the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group recognition in 2016. This allows the team to be deployed and participate in disaster missions overseas.
More after the break. Stay tuned.
Cuaca panas menyebabkan kelumomo, minyak dan kegatalan. Clearman 100% untuk para lelaki. Teknologi anti kelumomo 3 kali ganda. Tiada kelumomo, minyak atau kegatalan. Dingin pada kulit kepala. Clearman terbukti menewaskan kelumomo.
Sebagai seorang artis, saya sentiasa berusaha untuk tampil yakin dan anggun dengan sempurna di pentas. Dan ianya bermula dengan siri minuman Bioslim Baharu yang enak untuk dinikmati setiap hari. Demi kesejahteraan dan keceriaan diri, supaya saya sentiasa berikan yang terbaik. Kini, saya bersedia. Bioslim, keyakinanku, pilihanmu.
Welcome back. Global forecasters predict that much of the international economy could tip into recession in 2023. But Malaysia is optimistic the country would be able to dodge a recession, according to Minister of International Trade and Industry, Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz. We ask economist Dr. Jeffrey Williams about the prospects of Malaysia avoiding a recession.
I think many international forecasters were quite pessimistic up to the end of last year. But actually, look, in the very short period that we've had already this year, the world's changed quite a lot. And these developments mean that the prospects for Malaysia, and also particularly Asia, are not as bad as they were just weeks ago. And of course, one of the main issues there is the opening up of China. So many of the more gloomy predictions were based on the idea that China was going to continue to be locked down because of the zero COVID policies. And that has caused quite a lot of problems for Asia in particular.
However, some analysts fear that slower demand from developed economies like the US and Europe will mean weaker exports for ASEAN nations, including Malaysia.
Actually, things in Europe and the United States are still pretty gloomy, but not as bad, because inflation in particular appears to have peaked in Europe and America. And what that means is that the interest rate cycle will also have peaked. So whilst we can't be sure that there won't be any further increases in interest rates, we don't expect there to be continuous increases in interest rates for the rest of the year. And we may see there what we've just seen here in Malaysia, which is a pause in interest rates and then perhaps interest rates coming down, because what we expect is that inflation will fall very quickly and very sharply in Europe and in America.
To strengthen Malaysia's resilience to global economic downturns, Jeffrey suggests an increase in domestic trade, as well as boosting trade with ASEAN nations.
In terms of our relationship with ASEAN, it's very important to try to increase the flows of trade, goods and services. It's very important to get back to a stable flow of people, because, you know, one of the reasons why we had quite a lot of difficulties last year was the labor shortage and the labor problems with Indonesia. So it's very good that the Prime Minister straight away went to Indonesia and is really working very positively, I think, to settle some of those issues immediately. That's very important. And then also to push forward on the agenda for growth in ASEAN, integration across ASEAN in terms of trade and capital flows, but then also the CPTPP. So, I mean, what's going to happen there in terms of Malaysia's contribution to that bigger, broader market?
More on the international front. Health workers in Britain staged a strike today, with tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance workers walking out over a pay dispute. The walkout is the biggest and most disruptive in the 75-year history of the state-run National Health Service, NHS.
Nurses will also strike separately on Tuesday, while physiotherapists are scheduled to walk out on Thursday and ambulance staff on Friday. Health workers are demanding a pay raise that reflects the worst inflation in Britain in 4 decades. However, the government has said the move would be unaffordable and cause more price rises, leading to higher interest rates and mortgage payments. Around 500,000 workers, mostly from the public sector, have been staging strikes since last year, adding pressure onto Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to dissolve the disputes. The Royal College of Nursing Trade Union wrote to Sunak over the weekend, asking him to bring the strike to a close by making meaningful pay offers. It initially asked for a pay raise of 5% above inflation and has since said it could meet the government halfway, but both sides have failed to reach an agreement despite weeks of talks.
In other news, the U.S. military is searching for remnants of the suspected Chinese surveillance balloon it shot down on Saturday, a week after it first entered U.S. airspace. According to the U.S., a successful recovery could potentially give insight into China's spying capabilities. China, however, protested the response, calling it an obvious overreaction. China said the decision to shoot down the balloon it claimed was a civilian aircraft blown off course has seriously impacted and damaged relations between the two countries. China had on Sunday lodged an official complaint with the U.S. Embassy in China over the move. Washington on Saturday said a fighter jet shot the balloon down off the coast of South Carolina, citing it an unacceptable violation of American sovereignty. The aircraft had spent several days flying over North America, leading the U.S. to call off a planned visit to Beijing by Secretary of State Antony Blinken. As artificial intelligence technology continues to evolve, a key challenge developers face is correcting biases in AI systems. With AI playing an increasingly hefty role in decision-making processes, how can it be ensured that machines do not discriminate? Correspondent Farhana Sheikh reports from Boston.
Even in today's climate of increasing representation and diversity, humans can't run away from biases. Neither can AI. Since humans choose the data the algorithm uses and how it's applied, AI programming can be exposed to biases. So here at MIT IBM Watson AI Lab, researchers are looking on how to create a fairer AI. Let's find out more.
There is a lot in between, like racist or sexist and completely fair. So yes, maybe it's hard to make it completely fair, but we can certainly get closer to there. And yes, you're right. So a lot of the reason AI is biased is because the data that we give it is full of our biases and stereotypes as humans. So it just picks up on them. So it maintains them. Sometimes it could even strengthen them a little bit. But we can also try to think about what does it mean to be unbiased, right? So that's the part where we need to define those notions of fairness, group fairness, individual fairness, something I discussed today, right? And so once we can kind of formalize it or explain it to AI in a way, basically the research part is, okay, once we can think of what it means to be fair, we can explain it to AI and how to do it. So
to achieve fairer AI, IBM Research develops InFairness, an open-source library that can support training and auditing machine learning models for unwanted biases. Mikhail stressed that correcting biases and promoting inclusive representation require more active participation.
The goal of kind of fairness research is to make sure if you want to achieve maybe more balanced representation, you can, because this is not a trivial problem for AI, right? So we develop techniques that let you get there, and then as a provider of a search engine, sort of for you to decide what you want to show. Everybody now has a tag to detect biases, so we have open source tools which you can run on a basic laptop. You don't need to have a factory of computers or GPUs or whatnot. So the example I showed, let's say, is correcting a bias in a large language model. It's basically anyone can do it on their laptop, and it's not also. Yes, of course, the person who wants to do it will need to learn how to use those things, but we also try to make it as easy as possible. So we have videos out there, we have examples that you can walk through and learn. We ourselves can also answer questions. So I think everybody now can kind of go ahead and try to make their system more fair.
That's all on AWANI tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Soraya Mia, and we'll see you again.